First item on our agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment tonight?
Jeff Swan, 132 Franklin Street. I normally bring copies. I didn't hand them out because I'd have to touch them. So if you want them, I can email them to you. All right. Dear board members, as we are all aware, the pandemic has come to town. As it is, COVID-19 appears to me to be a threat more by what we do not know than what we do know. However, as we have seen in true relief against the backdrop of the world events, incompetence, incoherence, hunches, and vague instructions are not the solution to the human condition. I'm sure that in this very meeting we will have suggestions and discussions on what, where, how we can make this event as livable as it can be. As I do not have the ability to predict the future and only this time frame to make a statement, I would like to take this opportunity in front of that conversation to suggest that Clinton use City Hall as a clearinghouse for aid to those in need. Perhaps establish a hotline or a social media page for help and maintain a list of those able to provide the help or place where those with the ability, capacity, and desire can respond. We are stronger together, but to be together, we must be connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Is there any other public comment? There being none, review of the minutes. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes of March 4th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up is a meeting with the Clinton Board of Health, Steve Lipka, the chairman, to discuss the COVID-19 Chinese virus.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to give you an update on what we started to do as a result of the governor's order. Obviously, they closed down restaurants and bars. They limited people to 25 people in a room. So yesterday, we ordered the closure of all town buildings to the public, which includes the town hall, library, senior center, Parks and Rec. We also closed the playgrounds. Playgrounds aren't sanitized. We don't think it's a good idea for children to be on the slides and the swings down there. We've also closed the ball field to organize activities. This is a fast-moving virus, and it's changing daily. So we're trying to stay ahead of it. We're probably still way behind, but we're doing the best we can. We want to remind churches you can't have more than 25 people in your church at one time for funerals, weddings, and masses. Supermarkets, pharmacies, and gas stations will remain open throughout this ordeal. Supermarkets are probably going to close a little early to give themselves a little more time to sanitize the building each night. We have daily updates on our webpage, and most of the information we've been getting is from the mass.gov webpage. They have a coronavirus page there that'll give you daily updates on testing, on any positive tests. There's a lot of links there to answer any questions you might have. So I think we're getting there. We're in pretty good shape. Daycares are going to close on Monday. So
What's
like
going
I
to close
said,
on Monday?
daycares
This coming Monday?
this coming Monday. So it's a pretty fast-moving virus. We're going to try and make whatever changes we have to make on the fly. We're just looking for support from the Selectmen. Is there anything we can do to help, or you have any questions for us?
Does anyone have any questions for the Board of Health right now?
Is the link to your website, have we moved, is that on the front of the Clinton?
alert on the top.
Okay, it's like very visible. I just want, people are gonna wanna visit the town website and very easily wanna be able to find the Board of Health. It's not that difficult to find it anyway, but
Right.
I don't know if there's anything we can do, or maybe we already have done. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet, but just to make it like very visible to somebody that's going to the website for the first time. Is that doable, or if it's not.
Yep,
if it hasn't
absolutely,
already
yep,
been done.
there's just an alert up there now, but I
Yeah.
think what we should do is take one of the spotlight boxes that are on the website and just
Okay.
dedicate that to this issue.
Okay,
You can put news, feeds in there, but instead of every day having a new news feed, I think it would just, if there was a spotlight box that you could just click on that box and it would bring you to that page. We did have a meeting today of departments, kind of looking at measures that different departments are taking, and all of that will be, I think should be highlighted as to how people can get services during this time, so.
okay, yeah, I see the emergency alert, so, yeah, if there's some way to connect that in with the Board of Health section of the webpage, I think that would be helpful.
Does anyone have any other questions for the Board of Health?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure it's for the Board of Health. Are we going to continue this conversation?
This conversation's gonna go on for a while.
Okay, so I guess I want to try and establish this. I know we're a little behind on this, and we can't go on an every other Wednesday schedule anymore. So, I mean, not just meeting, as far as just updating on this. So, is there a way, or I just want to make sure that I mean, we closed Town Hall yesterday.
Yeah, but can we, the stuff that you're gonna bring up, John, I'd rather, unless it's specific to the Board of Health, I'd rather.
Well, I don't know. I mean, is it? Or, I don't know who's in charge anymore. So if, you know, I just want to make sure we're ready for this. People are asking me, Town Hall closed yesterday. They don't know, I don't know what to tell them. So
Right.
it's, I think Board of Health's doing fine. I just want to make sure that, we can't wait till 2 weeks from now to readdress this. So I want to make
Right.
sure that we're in some kind of communication here, or how we're gonna, like, if things take a turn, you know.
I'd like to address that after we complete the work with the Board of Health.
Okay.
And the one thing that the chairman asked is if the Board of Selectmen would support them in the policy of closing town buildings and restricting public access to those buildings. And this has nothing to do with employee participation in the buildings and their individual responsibilities to report to work. This is a measure to close the facilities to the public to provide protection for the employees of the
Correct.
buildings and for the general public,
Correct.
but to keep the building staffed and to have the employees develop methods of their own to interact with the community, either by email, telephone, webpage. That's going to be their responsibility, and this direction by the Board of Health doesn't affect employees coming to work. Yeah.
So what we're basing our information on is our nurse meets or has a conference call with CDC every week, Department of Public Health every week, and we take those updates that are on Tuesday and Thursday, along with what we get from the webpage every day. Call our partners with the Massachusetts Public Health Network and try and get as much information as we can every day. I pass it on to Mike Ward. We talk a couple times a day, and I've been talking with Billy Conley, and I've talked to you, Sean. I'm just trying to keep everyone aware of the situation and keep people as updated as I can.
Absolutely, and as we spoke earlier this week, and we're on the same page, I just want to make sure that if you need to make another move, you don't have to wait for our vote. Like, I think you should close Town Hall, you know, if you think Town Hall should be closed, that should be your call, and maybe if we need a vote, we can do an emergency meeting, but I don't think we should have to wait till Wednesdays. We don't have the
No,
luxury.
I was going to
so
bring that up
Okay.
after we're done with the
I want to make sure you
action
have
of the
whatever you
Board of
need
Health.
going forward, that you
No,
don't have to
I
wait
think
for us
it's,
for 2 weeks.
the Board of Health has the power to do this without our say-so.
But they're
Except
looking
the
for our support and collaboration. So I would entertain a motion from the board to support the Board of Health's decision to close all town buildings to the general public,
Correct.
not to employees.
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that the board supports the Board of Health in closing all town buildings to the general public until further notice.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Michael?
I mean, I'm going to vote in favor of this because I don't want you to feel unsupported. But I've thought about this all day, and I'm just wondering, I mean, first of all, I absolutely agree that the schools should be closed. I agree that the senior center should be closed. because those are places where people tend to congregate. The town hall is a place where people trickle in and out. And, you know, when we go to Shaw's or Hannaford's, we expect the people to be there. And we expect to be able to go in and buy groceries. And I'm sort of not understanding why the town hall would be any different from those two places, considering that the people at the town hall are paid more money. So I find that bothersome.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because I mean, aside from elections, I have never seen a line at the town clerk's office. Well, maybe two people. I've never seen a line at the assessor's office. I mean, and I'm in here quite often. It's never teeming with people. The hallways are usually empty. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to vote for this, but I have very mixed feelings about it. I don't know why the people at Shaw's and the pharmacies and at Cabela's and everywhere else, why they're expected to be there, but public employees are not. Well, I know they're going to be here, but the others are expected to interact with the public. Public employees are not.
I think we're expecting the public employees to interact with the community using slightly secluded methodology.
I understand.
Using the internet,
Yeah,
using
yeah,
the.
I do understand.
Most business can be conducted over the phone.
Yeah.
We
You
need
can't buy your groceries over the phone.
That's right.
You
Well, you
can.
can, I guess. But,
You know, there's a couple things. You want to protect your employees, number one, but you got to keep town government open. It's an emergency, and we got to take preventative measures. I think it's the right thing to do. We're just following the advice of the state and the surrounding towns.
Mr. Chair, I mean, my thought is that we have to set an example here, and we can't be asking people to stay at home to try and prevent the spread of this while requiring them to come to town hall to do things that frankly they should be able to do remotely. And we'll have to talk about it later, but I think public comment at these meetings or you know, attendance at these meetings is something we're gonna have to deal with too. It's going to be different going forward. And yeah, I just think we can't ask these people to come out to stay at home if we're gonna force them to come out and pay their excise tax.
I think we need the town hall employees to figure out ways to conduct the taxpayers' essential business by a drop box outside to pay their taxes. Preventing them from coming in physical contact with the general public only protects our town employees, it protects the general public, and it facilitates our ability to continue operating without having town hall-wide infection and having to close the building because we don't have any employees to come in.
It's fine doing this, but then, you know, that employee is gonna go home and then probably need to go shopping, and they're gonna go out and expose themselves. So I would rather be safe than sorry, so I'm fine with endorsing this, but I do kind of agree with Mike a little bit. It's like they're gonna face more danger going to, and danger is not the right word, but as far as risk is concerned, I mean, going to a supermarket or going to a store, you're gonna run into more traffic than you are going to at the town hall. So, I mean, I'm in favor of it, but I agree with Selectman Jaconski's logic that we are kind of, I don't wanna say it's an overreaction. I'm fine with doing it, and I'd rather be safe than sorry, like, early on. But I definitely think that for at least now, to your point, Mr. Chairman, about the employees and the staffing remaining the same currently, and the department heads, they're gonna have to be creative in some instances to come up with new projects and because what the employees are gonna be capable of doing is going to change based on, you know, what they're gonna be limited to do. So, but we can't just send people home indefinitely and keep paying them. So the department heads are gonna have to come up with some plan and some projects for the foreseeable future where they can still stay engaged and be productive for the town, at the same time distancing themselves and minimizing their exposure. to the public.
Personally, I'm hoping that this is something that we can put to bed in 2 weeks and we'll be done with it, but personally, I suspect based on just observation, this is gonna get a lot worse before it gets better. And within days or weeks, the Board of Health will be telling us we need to empty our buildings. The governor's gonna tell us to shelter in place. That's extremely likely. I don't want to be dismissive of that likelihood. So I think this is a short-term measure, not a long-term measure.
I agree.
And I think we're going to be faced with harder decisions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the numbers are definitely gonna go up because they don't have enough testing kits, and once the testing kits start hitting, more people getting tested, I mean, I don't, yeah. So I hope, I mean, we'll take the direction of the state and the federal government, whatever they say that we need to do, but I mean, I think there's only so much that we can, avoid large crowds, social distance, wash your hands, and outside of that, I mean, our entire lives we can't all sit in a basement for the next 12 months while this thing blows over. So I just hope that for the steps that we take, I just hope that there's logic behind them and not just a reaction, more bred out of panic. That's all.
I firmly believe that this type of reaction is to prevent panic.
We slow it down.
It's
Yep.
it may be acting quicker than we need to, or doing more than we need to, but I'd rather, in this situation, based on what we know, I would rather err on the side of caution, protect the health of our employees, protect the health of the community. I'm afraid, but I really believe that we're going to be taking more drastic actions very quickly, and I'd hate to see us in the position of exposing unnecessarily healthcare workers to the people that, and the police and the fire and the DPW, people that we're counting on to help take care of us through this. I think we have to do everything we can to mitigate the spread of the disease.
I agree.
So-
It's about isolating and containing. One person comes in infected into this town hall, that puts all of us at risk, our families, our friends. So it's a small measure. It's not the end of the world, but I think it's a safe move to make, and that's why we did it.
Is there any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I probably should ask before I made the motion. So am I to understand there isn't a plan in place now for going forward? Or we're still figuring that out? As far as how people pay their excise tax or get their properties assessed, or?
There is no firm plan in place.
No, we did speak with all the department heads, have put together what their needs are and what they're gonna do if the building is closed. So people can, the drop box out front, they can drop their taxes off there, but they can pay online and do it in other methods. So-
And how are we gonna let people know this? Is this gonna be department by department? Are we gonna make a formal announcement tomorrow that town hall's closed and here's how you do your business going forward, or how are we gonna?
I believe both entrances today, they had signs up front explaining what to do.
Right, for the
Open.
public, yeah. I mean, public coming to the building, there'll be signs out front to let the public know. But
Clearly
departments, I'll
explaining.
be in communication with the departments on implementing, the measures that they need. And then there'll be a blast out on the website to let the public know that what changes are gonna take place. Departments are willing to meet people, on the sidewalk or in front of the building, in the open air to exchange, forms or paperwork if need be. So they've all looked at it and come up with, ways that they can interact with their constituencies. So-
I just wanna make sure, it's obviously an unsettling time, and if we're gonna close town hall to the town, we need to be able to reassure them as soon as possible that business is gonna go on as it did before. So,
Absolutely.
and I can't wait till 2 Wednesdays. So
No, let's get to that next.
I
Let's
just wanna
de-
make sure before.
Let's deal with the Board of Health's request
For
first.
closing town hall, which I think we did yesterday,
No.
and people have been asking me, how are we gonna go forward? What's gonna happen with this? How do I pay this license? I need to get my car, I have to pay in person. And I'm standing there, I don't know what to tell them. So I just wanna make sure, this isn't something that's gonna trickle out over the next 2 weeks, that we have a plan that tomorrow, hopefully, when people read online that town hall is closed, they know, why and how they're gonna go about, living their lives. I've been told we're gonna deal with this Wednesday, I just wanna make sure we deal with this on Wednesday and it gets taken care of.
Right, we're just not gonna deal with it right this
Okay.
minute, one step at a time.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Mr. Chair, it didn't go into effect yesterday, we just did a test today, just to kind of do a dry run today, so, and we had a box out front and kind of, just to see what the impacts would be, so.
It was a little leaky yesterday, let's just say that the word was leaking yesterday, that
Yeah.
it was closed, and I didn't know what to tell them, yes or no,
Yeah.
so.
These decisions, they're fast-made. I mean,
I
it's
understand.
moving fast, and we can't wait.
It's not gonna slow down, no, and I don't
No,
wanna wait, that's
and
the thing,
it's-
so I don't wanna,
it's-
I don't want you to have to come down, like, we need to
They're not going
streamline
to.
this.
Let's get one step at a time.
If
Please,
we're
Sean?
we're just closing town hall, this is kind of a big deal.
We're not leaving here tonight till we've resolved
Okay.
as many issues as we possibly can, but I'd like to do it step by step.
Go ahead.
But I do agree with Selectman Kerrigan before we move on. Whatever we do decide, even if it's just tentatively, we need to get something up very visible on the website as soon as possible. I think that goes without question.
Great.
What
Is
about
it-
the reverse 911?
Yep, absolutely, yep.
You could.
That's what we talked
do,
this morning, absolutely. Talked to the
but
department
not-
head meeting this morning that we would,
You want to get this settled, and then we can talk about reverse 911.
I've got
I
a
don't
whole
wanna
bunch of things
join
I'd
in.
like to present to the board for
All
their
right, okay,
consideration.
all right. So well, let's move the question as to whether or not we support the Board of Health. That's all, that's the only thing we're asking here. So, I mean,
And we're supporting the Board of Health in their decision to close town facilities to the general public.
yes.
Is there any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. If you guys wouldn't mind sticking around in case questions come up.
Sure.
You got a few-
Tom would like to give you an update. He talked to the nurse earlier, so he's got an update.
Sure.
Real quick, from the
Yep.
nurse, on how we're doing.
This will be quick. As of 5 o'clock, talked to our public health nurse, and there is no cases, confirmed cases in the town of Clinton of this coronavirus. The town of Clinton is partners with the Montechusett Public Health Network, and it has 13 towns. And as of right now, that's with Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, with his one confirmed case, and that's in Templeton. As of this Montechusett Public Health Network, we're involved in, because the governor just released like $5 million for the public health.
Right.
And we're looking to put in our town, these 13 surrounding towns, a hotline involved, along with hiring other public health nurses, and just be able to just have any questions being answered. They want to try to run it, well, they haven't got the money yet to do it, but they just, today had to put in, and as of, we had like 315,000 for the 13 towns. So we're hoping, we'll find out. They said it was going to be quick, maybe by the end of the
And
week.
that's supposed to be just a down payment, they said, so.
Exactly, there was, I guess they issued 15 million, but, because we're in a district of 13 towns, we
it all
we
goes there.
we share a same doctor who has 14 residents that are on call with us, so we're in pretty good shape. That's all I got.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you. The next thing I'd like to bring up is, this is a rapidly evolving, changing situation. It could get better, it could get worse, but decisions can't be done on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. I would like to entertain a motion from the board to authorize the town administrator, in consultation with the chairman and/or town council, to take whatever administrative or regulatory action needs to be taken to implement any guidelines sent down from the state, either from the governor or through the state health boards.
So moved.
Second.
Under discussion, I just want to add, I think it's important that we be able to react immediately. The town administrator is here to do that. He can consult with the chair And I think we should, any action that's taken, we should provide updates to the board. So that's the motion that I wanted to have, and with any other discussion on it.
I mean, just, I don't think that we would be opposed to anything that's requested of us, but if something comes up, Mike agrees to it, and then at the next selectmen's meeting, if we did have questions or concerns about it, we could address it at that
Right.
time, and then, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
How do you imagine information sharing to happen? Like, I mean, would we, he would talk to you, would we get any word of this until?
Yes, that
Yeah.
was part of, any action taken, we would update the board immediately, but we can't meet the public meeting notices
We
quick
cannot.
enough. We can't call the meeting quick enough. We may not all be available. And these decisions, and it's a responsibility that we're putting on the town administrator too. But I can see us, the shelter-in-place thing, or whatever you want to call it, I can see that coming down the pipeline. And we have to be able to do that instantly, not by waiting, discussing, debating, and having a meeting. So that's what I'd like us to act on at this time.
I agree.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. The other, in conjunction with that, I would like to schedule weekly meetings for the Board of Selectmen, cancelable if there's nothing immediate to address. I don't think once every week is gonna be enough through the immediate month or two of this, but I would rather schedule the meetings and cancel them if they're not needed. Does anyone, we don't need a motion on that, I just wanted to,
I remember the days when we met weekly anyway.
we've become much more efficient since those days, Mike.
Is this where I can ask
I'm
about?
just saying, I'm
remote
quite
access,
old.
Or are we gonna get to that, remote access?
Let, just
get to
finish
that?
this and then we'll get to that, okay?
I mean, you keep in mind too, that the meetings don't, I mean, with the new guidelines, I mean, they can be called relatively quickly.
Right,
And we can do it via conference calls or FaceTime.
but I would like to get, at least immediately,
Yeah.
schedule a meeting for the next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that. Maybe we can do some regular business at those too. To address Selectman Kerrigan's interest is.
And not just for us.
I know, it's for it's for the public, it's to be in compliance with,
Right.
public meeting law.
And it would be good because any announcements that need to be made.
Right,
I mean, you know, people do watch on TV. So that's good.
okay, let's just vote on that motion first.
You said we didn't need to
You
vote,
say
but-
we need.
Well, we did not need a vote, that was advisory, all right. The next item is what Sean was bringing up.
And if I may, just as a background, people watching at home, Governor Baker, there's an open meeting law which requires us to post a meeting 48 hours in advance, among other things, to meet in public if there's more than a quorum, to not discuss business if there's not, and we have to be in a public place. Considering the extraordinary circumstances we're under, the governor has modified that law for the time being to include things where, provided there's public access, we could do something such as a conference call or a video conference. I know a lot of people working from home are doing that, Zoom or whatever it is. But the challenge is making sure that you, the public, have access to provide public comment still and ask questions if necessary. So that would, us doing a conference call isn't the challenge. The challenge is allowing the public to still have that access, which they're entitled to under law. So just some background.
Mike and I have already discussed him looking into whatever avenue is available to us to meet the concept of public observation of the media, of our subsequent meetings, and we hope to have that in place.
Yeah,
For the next
there are a number of solutions other towns have started using, so, and just consulting with some of those, some are working better than others, so, try to find whatever best solution works for us. With so many people wanting to go to these different routes now, it's kind of jamming up some of the bandwidth, but there are some that are doing better than others on the feedback I've gotten from other towns, so we'll have something in place, when we need it.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot on social networking of how other communities and even some of our departments are communicating with the public. And I'm wondering if there's any interest from the Board of Selectmen to assist the town administrator in getting those types of announcements out there.
I have offered and continue to offer. If there's anything I can do to help, I would be happy to.
Okay?
Great.
Good.
Are we talking about, so just to be clear, are we talking about improving communication on the town website or establishing a social media presence?
Both.
All right. I'd love to talk to town council, but I've been poking around this obviously for a while, and what's been easiest is just, if we can't do it well, don't do it, but obviously in these times, a lot of people, over-communicating is the least we can do. What I'm worried about is making sure that, we have a policy in place as far as responding to comments and how that happens, whether it's a one-way thing and we just don't endorse or engage comments at all. I think this, I'd be curious, apparently you can't go and delete people's comments. So if we're comfortable with it being the Wild West for a little while and just, I don't know, for those of you who aren't in the Clinton social media community, it can be a little prickly at times. So if we're willing to deal with that, there'll be some growing pains, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
So are we just assuming that selectmen's meeting in the future are gonna be closed? I mean, because tonight is open to the public, or is it not?
It was open.
It was open to the public.
It's always open to the public.
That
We
was
just want to
open,
give them that option, and, and if we are locked down, then we have to look at that
Going
continuity
forward,
going forward.
they may not be open to the public in this format.
Okay.
Not by our doing, but if it is a shelter
We
in
may
place.
not be in
Right,
this
State
format.
Right.
Right.
We may be operating, I don't know how we set up, I know there's a mechanism for a selectman to participate remotely. I don't know how we do it collectively, but
I've become very, very fluent in the video conferencing. We had 2 going in my house today, with, like Bill's gonna be out the roof, but yeah, I mean, the question is, and I've seen other towns, they provide either options for a couple days before and after to email comments that would be read. Sometimes they have a phone number. Worcester, I saw, had a public health hearing where there was a number to call in, a conference call, and I didn't see if they read the comments out loud. I didn't know if they got any. The platform we use at work, I've seen Cambridge is letting people, giving them a link to it, and we'd just be the same thing. They would sit there and we'd say, we'd see everybody's picture, and for public comment, we'd recognize them and we'd go forward like that. It sounds odd and it's going to be very different, but I mean, these are going to be different times for a while. So yeah, whatever options we can have, and again, we have to be nimble because look at where it's come from last Wednesday to where it is
Right.
now, and it's only going to get faster.
So that was why I asked for a volunteer to even draft the announcements.
Yes.
Just get them to Mike so he has editorial approval, and then get them out there as quickly as we can. We need to update, we gotta keep the community informed of what's going on as quickly as we can, mostly specific to what we're doing here in town. I think that's important.
I do too.
Does anyone else have anything regarding the virus?
Yeah, just, and again, this is, I don't know who's in charge of this. Like, what about like the planning board or the conservation commission or the school committee? They seem to have things pretty well over there, but like, is there gonna be an overarching, policy or advice for similar things? I know we have a little more resources here than some of these other boards, but the planning board does a lot of one-on-one with developers and attorneys, and how are they going to continue service? It's a lot more, just sitting back and getting ready for this meeting, there's just a lot of pieces that are, we were having trouble, we're still waiting to put them on TV. Now, if it comes to, I don't know, 3 months without them being able to act with anybody, we've got, we're trying to get people downtown, and I don't know where we're going. Like,
Yeah, I think whatever, hopefully if there's a meeting of a board that doesn't have an urgent agenda, those can be put off. But if there is a board that has to meet, whatever platform we can try to set up in this room or whatever, and that they could just use this room, and instead of downstairs or try to figure it out. If that's the policy, if we have the building limited access during the day when the employees are here, or, opening it up to board meetings at night, which again, it's still exposing the building to, potential contamination. But if it's the policy that no boards or no meetings will have, public participation in the building, then we will set up whatever, communication that we need to in this room, and then everyone will just have to meet out of this room.
Okay.
I think we're going to reach the point where we're not meeting in this room, we're not having public meetings. I think we're gonna get there before we get back to normal. So I think anything we can do now to prepare for that is in our best interest and the community's best interest.
Okay, so, and I'm fine leading the charge here, like this, our board coming up with how we can do this remotely. Is there communication with these other boards letting them know that this is what's coming down the road? And
We haven't yet, no. Conservation's meeting tonight downstairs, so they have a meeting tonight. The planning board meets the first Tuesday of the month, so that'll be coming up in the next time the board, or selectmen's, in a couple weeks when the selectmen will be meeting. Other boards meet, as needed. A lot of boards don't have the public participation.
Sure.
We still have to make requirements for it. But again, it's something that we haven't got. We're working mostly on the plan internally with departments, that if it's closed during the day, how are we going to still do business? We've been working with departments on that, so I haven't had discussions with all of the boards and committees at this point. So.
Okay.
I think the immediate question is, though, given the vote to close the town hall, are you still going to allow boards to hold meetings, night meetings? That's really, I think that's the question you're going to get, like, the planning board, ZBA, someone could ask tomorrow, I heard that the town hall's not closed, can we still hold our meeting next week at 7 o'clock? If they still want to have a public meeting, provided it's less than 25 people, it's less than 25 people, it still adheres to the governor's order, but
Right.
so that's the contradiction.
And you wouldn't need the
As
remote
we're
access.
sitting here right now, I don't see a reason to change that, but tomorrow that could be changed. And that's why we're asking the town administrator to take the responsibility of making those decisions and then informing us.
Just so I'm clear, so to change that, you mean change, so to answer town council's question, could the assuming things hold steady for 2 weeks, which is a big assumption, will the planning board be allowed to have public at their meeting?
I would say so. mean,
I would say so
We
too.
had the public here tonight. Consistent with the 25 people, or if it becomes 10 people, or whatever the guidelines become, unless or until those guidelines change, well, I would say they could.
I wonder, where do they normally meet, Mike?
Usually
Is
meet
it-
downstairs.
Just, I wonder if it would make sense to have them meet someplace that has more
More space.
Well,
so they're not like, maybe use the chamber hall here or something like that, so
Yeah.
they can social distance.
Yeah, the zoning board usually meets here, planning and conservation meet downstairs, so, yeah.
But on the directive of the town administrator, they could come up here.
Or we just have to schedule the room.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna evolve, and things are gonna need to change on 12-hour notice, 24-hour notice, and that's why we need to have a central person responsible for making those decisions and informing the board of them after the fact.
Is the assumption, though, that all of the boards will still continue to meet? It just they may stop meeting publicly?
I would encourage anyone who doesn't have necessary, I know it's budget season, but if this, for just meeting to meet, I would consider postponing that as often as possible. If it's something that has to happen, yeah, we should have it up here, and we should hopefully, or very soon, have a means for people to, when we say don't meet in public, every meeting is a public meeting. It's just how we get access so that people don't have to actually show up to this building to give their access. No one's going to be meeting out of public, to be very clear.
Yeah.
Public, I mean,
But
So we're clear.
as we sit here tonight, I would expect the planning board to be able to have
Yes.
a meeting with the public in attendance, because some of those meetings are in the nature of a public hearing.
Absolutely.
People have to have the opportunity to be present. That could change tomorrow.
Mhm.
That could change instantly, and I think we can rely on the good judgment of the town administrator to make those changes as they're needed.
And not to drag this out, but my hope is that, working together, which I think we're moving forward, that there's technology where town services don't have to shut down just because we all can't have 5 people in a room.
Okay, on the topic that we're on and the previous vote to endorse and support the Board of Health in their actions, I do want to make it clear, it's unfortunate the library representatives left here, but I want to make it clear that it's currently, I want to make sure that is our expectation, that currently town employees are required to report to work and develop methodology and plans and means to accommodate the public's needs, and that includes the library. If an employee is ill or they're afraid to come to work because of the environment, they're free to take their whatever sick leave, vacation time they have for those purposes. But as of today, nobody has a paid vacation. The expectation is even the library employees will report to work. There's things they could be doing. They could reach out to the school department to see if there's ways they can accommodate materials, books, to the general public, to the students themselves. They could do all kinds of creative things. They could utilize cable or Facebook, lacking as a detailed background in those resources. Sean could say it better, but why don't they consider doing a story hour to get it out there on cable or on Facebook? The parents are faced with the problem of all their kids being at home. Maybe that could be something they could be doing with the time they have available to them. There's no need for them to go home yet. Tomorrow, we could be sending all the employees home, or maybe the town hall employees will be looking at ways to separate like 2-person offices, putting them on different shifts or alternating days in and days out. There's all kinds of things that could be developing over time that may change, but right now, every town employee, in my mind, is expected to report to work.
Right, if I may. Just curious, and part of this is the new reality of telecommuting. I don't know how much it applies to town employees, but also looking forward to down the road, if there is a shelter in place, continuity of services. What kind of, I work at a college and we shut down Monday. We sent the kids home after break, but we shut down Monday. So I'm working out of my guest bedroom. So, and my wife works for the state, so she's been working home for a week. Do we have any thoughts for remote access for people who can do that, with the idea that we might all have to do that soon? Or I know, for certain departments, it's a hands-on job, and you can't pick up the trash via telecommute. But without making people come in, there aren't snow days, is what everyone's telling us at work. I had meetings all day. We're sorting things out. I'm still working. I'm very fortunate in that I'm a writer and I can do that anywhere. So I don't know. I would just encourage us to consider at every turn giving people who can work remotely the flexibility to do that. I don't know. In that, we're going to maybe need it eventually anyway. I don't know. It's a department thing, and I don't know if it's been talked about. It's just something.
Well, I would just say, I don't believe the town has the capacity to do that, do we?
Well, we would if it was, we would have the ability to do remote access where
We have
people
the-
could do a screen connect to their desk. So we can do that from home. but that would only limit you to your computer. So, you know, a lot of people that are working here at the town hall are servicing the public, processing forms, you know, dealing with paperwork, that type of stuff. So they wouldn't have access to that. You know, we couldn't bring a file cabinet home or something. So, but if there were people like the financial offices that needed remote access to their specialized software, then we can absolutely, anyone in the building, we can get a screen connect to get them into their computer.
Usually it
But
requires
most
some
people just have
software and
Microsoft
licenses.
Office. They just use Word and type letters and, you know, whatever, so, or spreadsheets and letters, so, but the financial offices, it would be beneficial to them. So we have that ability to do it. It's just kind of coming up with, again, that creative way of, if people are at home, what's their productivity to still getting work done for the town? You know, that's what we would have to think about, so.
So, I guess, you know, where we're at right now, personally, I'm okay with, but tomorrow, all that can change. There's, as Mike said, there's a lot of people that can't really effectively do their jobs from home. But we may be in a situation in a week that everyone's staying home and government does shut down. That could be part of where we get to with this.
So to reassure people, can we tell them that we're gonna be ready for that?
Nobody's
I
ready
can't-
for it.
I can't say that
But-
we could be ready for that.
What are we doing to get ready for it?
No,
If we all
I
seem
mean,
to agree that a
I
shelter in
think
place.
essential services, we would still have to find a way to make payroll, to
Right.
collect taxes, to do that type of thing. But, you know, if it's something that can be put off, it may have to get put off. You know, if it's you know, if everyone is sheltered in place, there won't be building going on, so we don't need building permits. So
Right.
we would have to then look at what is absolutely essential to be done in a total shutdown and give those people the resources to do that.
I guess I would urge that instead of things that we should be doing or would have to, that we start looking at them now. It's coming, and if it doesn't, then you know what, you know, it's a lousy thing to have to go through, but it's good experience to have under our belt. Like, I don't wanna have to wait, how long would it take to get a plan like that up? You know, to say, okay, they're gonna give us 48 hours.
Yeah.
You know, on Friday, we're sheltering in place. Like, are we gonna be ready? I don't know, like, and how long would it take? I would just encourage everyone to start looking at this
Sure,
now.
yep, no, absolutely. The departments have already been putting together what their needs are in those situations. We have the ability, technology-wise, it would be just for those essential services. So the understanding would be that there are gonna be people that probably won't be doing productive work for the town. You know, people that are here in the office using office machinery, using paper files, those people we're not gonna be prepared, you know, we're not gonna send them home with suitcases of paperwork to do. But the people that do need to get services done that are essential to keeping what we need operating and what the public needs. But again, if the public isn't, you know, if everybody is in that situation where we can't even come to the town hall, then it's gonna be limited as to what the public needs will be. So we definitely have the capability to get those critical, emergency, essential functions that we have to do.
Do board meetings fall under essential services, or if this shelter-in-place option was switched on, does that mean, like, do the Board of Selectmen still meet? Do the planning board still meet?
Could I just say something?
Moves.
Could I just say something?
Okay,
And I
all
mean, I don't know a thing about this, but I do know that I was watching the news the other night, and somebody said shelter in place was this: you couldn't go anywhere unless you were going to work, going shopping for food, or going for a walk. So shelter in place doesn't mean you have to go in the house and stay there. You know,
I just want to be prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
I'm seeing what's going on in other so-called developed countries, and they got caught with their pants down. We've given a preview of what could possibly be coming, and I think we owe it to the people who put us here to have whatever plan in place if something like that happens. It'd just be a dereliction of duty if we're seeing what's going on in other countries that are 3 weeks ahead of us, and it comes to us in 3 weeks and we're not ready, then I'll resign.
Honestly, Sean, I don't believe we can be ready for the worst case scenario.
Well, let's just-
I don't believe if it gets as bad as it could get, that we are going to be worrying about processing payroll at that point. Just a minor thing, not minor, it's, Chris McGowan was talking about, there's only 2 or 3 people that can operate the water filtration plant. If all 3 of them are sick, or worse, or just not available, how do we run, the water treatment plant?
I understand. These are,
If the
So
police
those are things
department,
that have
what
to
if
be
an
figured
infection,
out.
the police department, I'm sorry, Mike,
Go ahead.
the police department and the fire department, they're very close-knit, the social distancing is gonna be pretty tough for them. And they can't prevent they can minimize it, but they can't prevent their contact with the general public as part of their job, never mind their private life. And if a firefighter gets sick and he's on shift and he infects the rest of his shift mates, that's a whole shift down
Yep.
at the fire department.
Yeah, I know, and I just want to make sure that, first I want to make sure they get paid. It's just,
But-
it's this, we just need to lock down everything we can control in this unsettled time. I just want to make sure that people know that we're doing everything we can to control, what we can control. And that if we can't be in town hall, we still have a way of paying the bills and paying our employees and giving them the basic services. I know things could get dark. I just want to make sure we've got a bit of a head start here, and I know we might not get there. I just don't want to wait until, oh gosh, it's coming. What are we going to do now? Let's think about it starting now.
And I think we have, the people that we rely on to do those jobs are already thinking about that stuff right now. There may not be a good final answer at the end, but I rely on their professional competency to be trying to figure that out as we speak.
Why don't we have the board and Selectman Kerrigan can come up with a list of some possible concerns moving forward, and then maybe have it as an agenda item for next Wednesday, for the following meeting, and we can ask Mike if any steps have been taken towards to that end.
And I would encourage anyone that has individual concerns to share them with Mike, and if he thinks it's not a violation of the open meeting law, provide that information to us as a board so that we can be prepared to talk about it.
I just would be shocked if we ever got to a point where like 5 people couldn't get together, social distance, and conduct a meeting. If I just never, before this meeting, thought that was a possibility. If that is a possibility, then I agree with Selectman Kerrigan that we gotta start thinking of, we're not gonna be the only ones in that boat, if that, everyone's gonna be trying to, so I'm sure there will be some guidance from the state on how they recommend we move forward, if that's the ask, that they ask us to even stop having
But
meetings.
to Sean's point, is waiting till we get to
Sure.
that point.
Yep.
Is not gonna, that's gonna guarantee that we fail.
Agreed.
Okay.
It's all hands on deck, and I want to say, reassure the Board of Health. I just want to make sure that you guys, and we have it now, but as I've told the schools, we can't have any of this, they're doing that, they're doing that. This is a town-wide thing, it's way beyond us. So whatever you guys need, please ask. And if, it goes for everybody. It just, people are nervous out there, and it's our job to reassure them, to show them that, hey, we know life is uncertain right now, but we're going to give you the things that you're supposed to have as much as we can. So,
Agreed.
Good.
I wonder if it would also be worth having, so all the people that report to Mike, to the town administrator, to, for our next meeting, for Mike to present to us, maybe come up with, if they work for, there's a department that they think their tasks are going to change because of some of these limitations now, for them to come up with some ideas of, like, to your point earlier, like, people now are gonna have to rethink, like, change priorities and maybe work on something different than they were working before that they won't be able to. So instead of just kind of leaving that up there, just telling them to think of something, I think it might be a good idea to put on the agenda for next meeting to, the town administrator could even reach out to some of the other boards. I would recommend all the boards do this, with their directors, to task those directors to come up with a list of alternative tasks and projects and things that they think they can work on over the next couple months. Just for example, I mean, Parks and Rec deals a lot with the public. I'm sure a lot of the stuff that they've been working on over the last couple months has now gone up in smoke, but there's, you know, what else can they be working on?
Maybe
in
answer
the-
phones for the Board of Health.
What's that?
Maybe answer some phones for the Board of Health. We're probably
Possibly,
getting
yeah. I
worries.
mean, like you said, I mean, all hands are on deck, but I think it would be worth asking them to start thinking about that, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting, just to, I don't want to get too buried in the weeds on exactly what they're going to be working on, but I do think it's important that we ask them to think of different things to work on, that they're able to at least present us with some projects and some plans over the next couple months that they'll be able to see through. Mosquito.
I also think they need to be looking at what I brought up earlier, that we have a number of two-person offices where people are in close proximity. I don't know if we can put them in different locations, but as much as possible, we need to look at creating that social distance, that is the intimate contact as much as possible that we can in the buildings that we expect people to work in. And it may come to the point where we have to reduce the hours or the staffing. I don't think we're at that point yet, but just to protect the employees and preserve our ability to continue to operate the water treatment plant, the treasurer's office, the town accountant's office, we need to be thinking about those alternatives. All right, we good on this for a little, until we get
Next
home
week.
and watch the latest?
Tomorrow.
I don't know I don't know if it's worth talking with the town administrator about, and I'll leave it up to the chairman, if we want to discuss, because they did have a meeting this morning, the different departments, and I don't know, it'd be worth having a summary of that, because I think some of the proposals seemed like they did involve like, reduction in staffing, temporary reduction in staffing, and that just seems to not be in line with what we're kind of discussing right now, which, I mean, what we're discussing now is shutting buildings down, but keeping the staffing the same and keeping projects going, at least, for now. So I don't know if it's worth.
If Mike's prepared to give a summary of that meeting.
It was really just kind of bringing everyone together to see what their needs might be. The Board of Health gave an update to the department, as they did to the board tonight, as to how things were faring on a state level and what they're dealing with. But we really just went around to departments to see what their needs were. And the biggest were the first responders on personal protective gear, that they're running low, and, you know, trying to look at outlets to try, like all towns, to try to get more equipment. But then kind of talk to some other departments, and what they've been kind of looking at is doing this staggering of employees already. The library had shut down, I think, totally. Parks and Rec were staggering employees so that they weren't in the building at the same time, and DPW to try to preserve their force to be able to pick up the trash and do the essential services, staggering shifts of employees as to when they would be working together, so as not to kind of infect a whole group at one time. So the building department, you know, indicated they have a drop box for forms to still work with the public, you know, as the collector is doing as well too. They weren't at that meeting. They weren't at that meeting. It was mostly the building managers, first responders, and then building managers that were at that meeting. So, but that was mostly, you know, the animal control was there, you know, talking, you know, about, again, just you know, he's advising people that, you know, pets can not transmit the virus, but they can carry it on their on their body, that can, you know, people can pick up. So it's still about washing hands and being, you know, being safe like that as well too.
So at this meeting, were they proposing that this is what they would like to do, or are they just telling us this is what they're doing?
Well, I think that was something that they were,
Or telling us this is what they're doing now until we hear otherwise. This is
Right.
like this is the
Right.
plan, because I'm definitely opposed to, at this point, reducing staffing. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head how many members are on the DPW, but if they're going out to different job sites, I can't imagine there's more than 3 or 4 at a time at a different site. So I'm a little, I don't really know what benefit we'd be getting from like alternating groups of workers. And in the case of the Parks and Rec, I don't know what would be gaining by alternating. I mean, it's just the director and the assistant director, right? I mean, those are only 2. I mean, I think we're at a place now where 2 people can work in the same building as long as they stay away from each other. So I just think from what we talked about in the beginning, and the motion that we made for the Board of Health was that the buildings close, staffing remains the same, the onus is on the directors and on the heads of those departments to come up with plans on how to utilize the workforce, because we can't, for the foreseeable future, just send a quarter, 25% or 50% of a workforce home paid. I just don't, if there was benefit to that, I wouldn't be opposed to doing it, but I don't see how doing that with these small groups of people that we're talking about in these departments, I really don't see how that's gonna be any benefit. I mind that the specific case of only 3 people being knowledgeable enough to run the water station, that's definitely something that needs to special consideration. But for other tasks that 3 or 4 or 5 guys are gonna be asked to do at the DPW around town, I don't really see the benefit of like doing some sort of a split squad, at least at this way. Unless there's, I might be incorrect. I mean, there might be, the Board of Health might have input on that I don't have all the answers.
I don't think we're in a situation today where we need to do those things,
Okay.
but I think we need to be planning them.
Sure.
Prepared to execute them, and that's one of the things that the town administrator would be authorized to execute if he thought it was necessary.
Right. I mean, I don't think we can solve all these problems sitting here tonight. I think we just need to charge Michael with getting the department heads working, the other boards cooperating, and coming up with some contingency plans.
But I want to be clear that the town administrator is we're giving him the responsibility of implementing those plans on an hourly or daily basis
Absolutely.
as the situation evolves or changes.
Mhm.
Right.
But at this point, we expect all town employees to report to work.
Yes, I do.
And I think it might go without saying, I know we agreed to meet every Wednesday, but if there was a need, if Mike thought there was a need for an emergency meeting, I'm sure would all be available for something like that.
If there's a need, I would call a meeting in 2 hours if we thought it was important enough, and do the best we can with accommodating the public meeting requirements. But if it's an emergency and we need to do something, we're gonna do it. Okay?
Okay.
Are we good
I'm
for
good.
now?
I
John?
mean, we've been better, but we're going forward.
I hope, well, all right. Do we have any budgets to discuss tonight, or they're tabled?
Yeah, I don't see the building inspector here, so we'd probably table that one,
And
but,
the Board of Health
I
has
think the
been
Board of
pretty
Health
busy.
yeah, I don't know if there was anything specific, that Mr. Lipka wanted to highlight, other than just the normal. Okay.
All right, we'll
Okay, we can
table
table
that. and we'll-
Now's the time.
We could be doing it next week, but the purpose of scheduling a meeting for next week is primarily to deal with the virus issue.
But if we're here, we might, and
Yes,
there's things to do, we
yes.
might as well do them.
Right. Okay, administrative business, Feel Good Foundation. The Feel Good Foundation is requesting a one-day liquor license or one-day liquor licenses for a fundraising event to be held at their outdoor pavilion in the upcoming months. What's the pleasure of the board?
Just point of clarification. Can we, I mean, can we make rules? Like, how are we gonna do this going forward?
Well, this is in June, and the fields are closed. So if they remain closed in June, the liquor
They're out of
license
luck.
becomes moot.
Right.
Okay.
So my
Yeah.
advice would be to say yes or no, and If the
Granted
fields are
pending-
closed, it's,
Right.
We'll just open it up.
Contingent on, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept, sorry, what are we looking at? A one-day liquor license, is there a date on here? For June 20th, 2020, for the Feel Good Festival to be held at Fuller Field from noon to 6, contingent on Fuller
You'll
Field
get
being
released.
open.
I second that.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Old and new business, 2020 Bicycles Battling Cancer Ride. The American Cancer Society is requesting permission to allow participants in their annual bicycle ride fundraiser to travel through Clinton along Lancaster Road on Sunday, June 14th, between the hours of 7:45 and 8:30 a.m. Again, any of these approvals, that if we're inclined to grant them, are subject to whatever restrictions exist at
right,
that time.
at that time. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant the request of the 2020 Bicycles Battling Cancer.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. CDBG grant extension, the Director of Community and Economic Development is requesting approval of a grant extension for the FY17 and FY18 Community Development Block Grants. Mr. Duffy?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll be very brief. This is purely an administrative request, which comes pretty much every quarter. We have ongoing CDBG funded activities. They are not complete. DHCD, our funder, requires that on a quarterly basis, we request an extension from the executive board of the town. You have for you a memo that summarizes ongoing activities and progress since the last quarter. I dispense with the reading in the interests, hopefully in your interest of expediting things, but this is a purely administrative thing. You see me every 3 months for this.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board authorize the chairman to sign an extension request for the fiscal year 2017 and 2018 community development block grants, extending time of performance for grant-funded activities to June 30th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Water sewer abatement request. Mike, could you?
Sure,
Brief
Mr. Chairman.
report.
This is from Mr. Peter Wong at 325 High Street, was asking for consideration for an abatement request that was in the packet. There was a water leak in his building that wasn't noticed right away. The normal billing cycle would be just over $100. This one was like $2,000. The repair was leaked. The leak was repaired, sorry, but it's a commercial building, so according to the water sewer abatement policy, this is something that would be reviewed by the Selectmen. General residential abatements are done at the department level and then brought as a whole to the board, but on commercial, they need review by the board initially.
Now, he mentioned that they'd be willing to pay the normal amount. Is there a number that we're approving here?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the question I have is that there was a major jump in the bill in April, and there was another one in October. Why did it take October? He got a bill in the spring. It was staggering.
I don't have my paper copy of his explanation, but it was a fairly detailed explanation of how they got to where they were.
It went from 3,000 to 11,000 to 40,000 by the end of the year. Staggering.
Yep.
You would think if there's nobody there, they should go to the water department, have the water shut off.
I don't remember the details, I can't get it up on my iPad, but I think he described the situation with varying tenants and not being there.
Not just this one,
Yeah.
but we've been getting a lot of those lately.
I mean, I think we should grant it. I'm gonna make a motion, we grant the abatement.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so are we just gonna waive the whole thing? Is there a number there, or
Well,
we're gonna
that
let
they
them
should-
sort it out?
I mean, I think they should pay the normal amount. I think
Right, I
the
thought there was a
abatement is
number
for the
there.
excess.
Yeah, it's just some math. I don't do math.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It would just be, I mean, you can ask the Superintendent of Public Works to come up with the number, but I think it would just be abated to what would be a normal,
To normal charges, not
It-
waiving the whole
yeah.
thing.
Selectmen, but, I mean, it's a fair question, though. If the bill jumped from 3,000 to 11,000 in May, why did it, why wasn't, why didn't he get why didn't he think that that was odd in May, wait all the way to December to see it jump up to 40,000? I mean, I'm not here to,
I should just let Chris McGowan, Chris should know why or why not. Let Chris make a decision, how much, as far as how much.
I'm comfortable with leaving it at the discretion of the superintendent of public works, what's consistent with past action by the board as far as the amount. Any other discussion? So the motion is to grant the abatement in an amount that the superintendent of public works believes is consistent with past policy by the board and normal use of the service. Is there any other discussion? There being none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Community Needs Assessment Consultant Proposal. Is Phil still here?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, hello again. This memo is delivered to your hands as a proposal in response to certain actions that the town is contemplating, including the acquisition of the armory, the disposition of the old fire station, the potential reuse of Supernunt and Jean's Towing at 329 High Street, in which instance, for each instance, there has been some interest in reusing each of those properties for municipal use. The facilities director and I have been having discussion, and as we deliberate upon these properties, and we do so with a timeline, specifically in reference to the armory property, we're suggesting that as the town undertakes these deliberations, that we consider obtaining the benefit of professional expertise in terms of understanding what the community needs are and what the conditions of these existing properties are and whether they are well or poorly fitted to some of the contemplated uses. So in effect, it's a proposal to consider hiring jointly someone like a planner and someone like an architect to assist the Selectmen subcommittee that is charged with deliberating upon these properties.
And the funding for this?
From the community, as you know, my office, one of the funds in my office is the Community Development Fund. It's derived from the return receipts of previously funded grant activities. It is more than adequate to cover the estimated project cost of $40,000 to $50,000.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, as long as it's not coming out of taxpayers' money, it's coming out of Mr. Duffy's budget, I have absolutely no problem with it.
Will you make that a motion?
Yes, I make that a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Sean?
generally, how long would this process take?
It depends on the degree of direction we give the consultant. I would say probably 6 months. It's going to take at least a month to hire some people.
Yep.
The critical piece will be, as I briefly described here, is kind of an outreach to understand what our community needs are, and to have that informed not only by the departments, but by an adequate and representative understanding of the community's needs. And we're talking short and medium-term needs. That would probably take at least a few months. Simultaneously, facilities assessments would be going on. We know that we already have a pretty good facility assessment on the old fire station from the previous assessment done. The library is doing one now that may come in, that may be information that is useful. But I would say 6 months. I would say 6 months. And I would say further that if the motion is carried, I would work with the two selectmen who are on that committee to kind of establish the parameters of the RFP, tell bidders what properties we're looking at, and what we anticipate to be the process so that we can get reliable responses.
so Phil, you're on this board right now, right? The surplus redevelopment subcommittee?
As far as I understand.
Okay. So I'm not totally opposed to it, but I'm just trying to, and I know we haven't met yet, and part of that's on me. I've been trying to talk to the schools about getting the fire station included. That's taken up most of my time, but what is this resource going to offer the subcommittee that you wouldn't be able to offer?
Well, I think in terms of understanding what our community needs are, I think we need to have a more sophisticated understanding of what those are. And the process of drawing out that information is something mostly nearly analogous to what we did in the master plan 15 years ago. It's a process of going out into the community and getting some purchase on ideas. As opposed to let's take the extreme opposite example, which is a bunch of people sitting around a table saying, well, I have one idea, I have another idea. Those aren't informed by anything other than our own personal biases. And our own experience, which may be useful, but is not representative of the entire town. So it'll be a process of getting a little better understanding of what those needs are, or how well-grounded those desires are in community demographics, in our capacity to implement, and in other things. And so on the kind of the soft side of the project, the planner side, that's where that person comes is useful. On the facility side, the architect side, that's a person can look at a building, understand not only the condition of the building, conjecture, some conjectural costs as to for its reuse, but also can understand how well that volume of space, that suite of spaces, that site can work for an anticipated use. I'll give you an example. Among the things I've heard that we might want to consider using Gene's Towing for a cable studio.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard we may want to consider using the Armory for a community center.
Mm-hmm.
How well do those fit, or how poorly? That's something we probably could use the benefit of, of some professional people who have the time and can be dedicated to that.
So is this estimated 40 to 50,000, is it one person, or is it multiple people depending on the stage that we're at in the subcommittee?
It depends. I think we want to do it under one contract.
Okay.
I mean, because they are two different areas of expertise.
Yeah.
We may come across some firms, a lot of the engineering firms are moving to truly comprehensive services. It may be that we get a respondent that is one firm, but I think otherwise, I think we would want to solicit joint applications rather than going to two separate contracts and end up with a situation where you have two consultants pointing their fingers at each other.
Okay. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't want it to slow anything down. So because we are going to start meeting regularly on this subcommittee, and we are going to start talking about ideas, I think we'll be fine if we think it's going to take a month. I mean, how is the hiring process going to be a drawn out like search committee thing, or is it just we can hire somebody quickly?
We can do it as quickly as we're able to do under under the designer selection law.
Okay.
This does follow under that, so there is a process that's prescribed by law. So we have to go out with a certain kind of solicitation for responses.
Okay.
We have to evaluate those responses and then subsequently seek price proposals.
All right.
Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Duffy. KRD Growers, Mike, could you walk us through this?
Sure. This is a little typo from the agenda, but it's KRD Growers, KRD Inc., which is putting in the marijuana facility on Parker Street here in Clinton. We have gotten notice from the state, as the board had been involved in. We got one from TICA and from Liberty Compassion, that we have gotten notice from the state that they are ready to go through the state licensing approval process with the Cannabis Control Board. So they just ask that the town just certify that we're good, that they've gone through the town requirements and permitting. So I've signed them off in the past. I usually, in the past, would put it as part of informational or part of an agenda, just to let the selectmen know, to make sure the selectmen are okay for them to go forward. I also check with the building inspector, permitting office, planning, zoning, that to make sure they're good with everything. And as long as everyone is all right, I usually sign off and said they're in compliance with local statutes, and then the Cannabis Control Commission schedules a hearing to give them their final state license. And so they're hoping that that will happen, that they can open up their retail operations probably sometime this summer. So
Do you need a vote from the board?
no,
good.
yeah, and I mean the board has done it once, then it didn't do it once, did do it once. So as long as there's no opposition, I'm fine with that. If there's no concerns or input, I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay. CHS Class of 2020 Senior Yearbook Donation Request. The High School of Class of 2020 is requesting donations from local organizations to support the production of their senior class yearbook. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we donate the same amount as last year.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Scholarship and Enrichment Foundation donation request. The Clinton Public Schools Scholarship and Enrichment Foundation is requesting donations from local organizations to support scholarships to high school students for their college education expenses. What's the pleasure of the board?
Go ahead.
Please. I always
I
ask the
think
same
we
thing.
do this every year. I
Yeah.
think-
Yes, we do.
I move that we authorize a donation equal to what we did last year for the Clinton Public Schools Scholarship and Enrichment Foundation.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mike, on the next one, have we done this in the past?
Yeah, the board has done that for the last several years as well, too. Usually supporting whatever their spring production is. I don't know the schedule, based on the schools. Their closure right now is for 3 weeks. There's talk it might be longer than that. This was to take place, I believe, at the first beginning of April. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been delayed,
This says
if
March
it's gonna be
27th.
canceled, based on their readiness. If they go back to school, they're gonna need another month to prepare for it, and they run out of time. I have no idea what the changes. This came in, 2 weeks ago before all these changes took place, so, but it is something the board has done, several times in the past, yeah.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we make the donation in the same amount as last year.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Under old and new business, I want to bring up something that it seems a little insignificant, given all the other trials and tribulations and issues we are facing and going to face, but I'm glad Mr. Duffy came back in the room. He might want to hear this too. I have a long-standing concern with the situation next door, the steeple of the church, the fencing around it. I can understand temporary storage of something like that, but this is one of the prettiest town commons and buildings in the state, and I believe that there's no provision, or there are provisions in the building code to prevent long-term storage of something like that, and that's not a temporary fence. It's been there for years. I think it's unsightly, it's slightly dangerous, and I would like to enlist the support of, or ask the building inspector, the economic development director, and the town administrator to look at whatever opportunities we have to direct the church to relocate that steeple and make it a more aesthetic, presentable.
I believe, Mr.
Situation.
Chairman, our building inspector, Mr. Salmon, and Russ, the facilities manager, I believe they both spoke to him. The container's out there, they told him it has to go. They're getting rid of it.
Oh, that container is to dispose of the
Yes.
steeple?
They were told
All right.
clearly,
Okay.
enough is enough. Now it's getting to the point, it's a
It-
safety hazard.
And it's extremely unsightly, and
Yeah.
there was, to my observation, no likelihood that anything was gonna be done with it.
And whether it is or not, it's possibly causing some of the problems we're having with the water coming into the town hall. So that's why Russ was involved. Let's get rid of it. Enough is enough, so he sent the building inspector over it.
Okay, well,
To
great.
my knowledge, that's where it's at.
And we don't really need to do anything.
But I agree 100% if it matters.
Okay.
Under old and new business?
Under old and new business?
Well,
Michael?
something of some insignificance, perhaps. I was happy to sign Mr. Kerrigan's reelection papers this evening, and in the interest of fairness, I would like to let those people who might be considering running for the Board of Selectmen know that I will be not running for reelection this coming June. I'm 73 years old, and I'm old and cranky.
You've always been old and cranky, from my perspective, Mike. And,
Becoming older and crankier.
first Tom Brady and now you, I don't know what we're gonna do.
So,
Well,
to give some, somebody, to give people notice, I mean, I just wanted to let them know, so.
well, I want to first encourage, I hope Mr. Kerrigan is successful in retaining his seat, and I want to express my appreciation for the support, the direction, the guidance, and the constantly keeping me honest that you've provided over the years.
Well, that's good, but I hope you would save most of this praise for my last meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
I will, all right.
I'm gonna try to be as cranky as I can now. I guess I can take off the cranky.
Just in case we don't have any more meetings between now and then, I wanted to
Oh,
express
that's right, too.
my
Yeah.
personal
Good last meeting.
appreciation for everything you've done for me and for the town of Clinton over the years.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
under old new business,
Ed?
I was able to visit the school committee, and re-engage talks with them about the fire station. The committee was generally in favor. Before they voted to hand it over, they did want to, get some answers and do a little research on what the existing zoning laws would allow to be put next to a school. So we kind of ended it there. I know, Mike, I think, didn't, you and Steve, Dr. Meyer, talk about that? I don't know where that went, if any answers were provided, or, I don't know where that's at. I know that there was an
Yeah, I can follow up. The Dr. Meyer did reach out to some of the affected departments, the building inspector, I think maybe economic development,
Yeah.
different departments that might be able to supply some information. But I have not gotten a reply on that, so I'll follow up and see where that's at to make sure they get their money, they get their information, because I believe they're meeting next week, I believe, the school
Okay.
committee, so we'll try to get them whatever information we can before
Yeah.
that meeting, so.
So, as long as they're satisfied with the existing zoning laws, I think that I feel good that we'll be able to move forward on that, but we just have to see what what it says.
What the potential is.
Yeah.
I hope the school committee understands that for anything to happen on that property, they have to release it first. We, or the town, has to develop a plan to utilize it or dispose of it. Town meeting would have to approve that plan.
Right.
And anybody that objects to what's proposed would have the opportunity at town meeting, and I believe we asked that a representative of the school department be on the subcommittee.
Yep, and they accepted, Mr. Bailey is gonna be
Well,
on
that was conditional on whether or not they declared the property surplus.
Well, I guess I laid that card out.
Yeah, well, that's okay, that's,
Yeah, I mean, if they decide not to move forward, I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think it'd be the worst idea in the world to
have them
have somebody
there
from the
anyways.
school on the board regardless, but.
that's right, but the intention of that
Yeah.
was that they were going to declare surplus, unless 40 years isn't enough to figure out what they're gonna do with the building.
No, I know, right, we talked about it at the meeting, I mean, it's just, if they are going to ask for money to invest, right now, where they're at right now, they just have bigger needs than taking on a project like the fire station, whereas I think we have a little bit more bandwidth and resources and ideas to find usage for that property, that it could still end up being going towards some type of a school
possible, right.
use, but it could also, be a number of other things where I think you have that larger array of possibilities, it makes it easier to do something with the property.
Especially if it's done, if the plan is developed in conjunction with all the other properties that we're considering.
Right.
And I understand their concern about wanting to protect their neighborhood, so to speak.
Sure.
But they have that opportunity in participation on the subcommittee and at town meeting. Ultimately, the building belongs to the townspeople.
Sure.
And if their job is not to develop a plan, other than for educational purposes, so if they're not gonna do that, they should turn the property back to the taxpayers and allow the taxpayers to decide what to do with it.
Yep.
So I hope you're successful in your endeavor.
Mr. Chair, not to be the dead horse, but I think the important word that Mr. Duff used was sophistication. And I know sometimes that's a bad word, but they, you know, they came up with a great plan that did a lot of that legwork with, I went to a community meeting and that was something they didn't want to pursue. So I think we
Correct.
owe it to everybody to see how this fits into our greater picture, since there are, you know, I don't think it's unprecedented, but there's quite a few properties in play right now, and we need to get them right. So to have that, to put this into that bigger plan,
Yeah.
especially if we're bringing on professional help, I think it just makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, I was on that committee when that was being discussed, and I was in favor of moving forward, but I just don't think that there was appetite on that committee, even to renovate it, to do anything with it. It was just, as soon as the price tag came in higher than people were expecting, it just lost a lot of momentum. And I think if we're serious about trying to do something with that, it's best in the town's hands in general, and of which the schools will still have a say in what we do with it.
Okay, any other old and new business? Committee reports? None?
I don't have anything, no.
Nothing else on the agenda? Pleasure of the board?
Oh, one thing.
What about
Oh,
executive
oh,
session?
Okay, just what?
Executive session?
I see executive session, Article 3,
Fire contract?
fire union negotiations. Is that,
You got a better agenda than I
I
have.
don't know.
I got it, yeah, I got it too.
I'm looking at the detail. No, thank you.
So
Yeah,
do we
yeah, it's
have,
on, yeah, it's on the agenda. I just wanted to meet briefly with the board, just 2 minutes, yeah.
okay.
All right,
Roll call.
roll call vote to enter executive session to discuss collective bargaining issues with the Clinton Fire Union relative to negotiations.
We will not return to
And we will not, thank you, Sean, we will not return
It's
in
open
open
meeting
session. John,
Ed Duval, aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
chair votes aye. We are now in executive session, and we will not reconvene in open session. Other than to adjourn.